going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to discuss another episode of the King Arthur Netflix series Cursed. This episode is titled The Red Lake, and I did not really care for this episode. It wasn't bad, but I think I'm starting to figure out what my problem with this series is. This is a 10-episode Netflix series. Each episode is about 1 hour long. This is not a TV show. This is a 10-hour movie, and I don't like that. And what I mean by that is you take a TV show that generally airs on television, let's say it's 13 episodes long or 10 episodes long. Usually my experience is you're going to get 10 solid units of entertainment. And even if it's part of a larger storyline, these days most of the shows that I watch are part of a bigger thing. Take, for example, Daredevil on Netflix even. That had a larger storyline. Let's say in the first season, Matt and his friends are trying to build a case against the Kingpin, and Matt is trying to fight his forces as Daredevil as well. That's your overall story for the entire season. But also, each individual episode feels like a complete unit by itself. You don't feel like you're watching an incomplete piece and then you're going to have to watch the whole thing to understand what's going on. With Daredevil, with Arrow, or The Flash, or any of these shows that I have watched in the past, even if the show as a whole isn't very good, I felt like you could still watch an episode by itself most of the time, and you could still understand what's going on, and you could still enjoy yourself just watching that one episode. I do not get that feeling here. This really does feel like they cracked this entire season as a whole, and then they split it up into 10 episodes, and then just wrote it out that way. And that's not really working for me when I want to watch it one episode a day. I'm not one of these people who, when 10 episodes of a series drops all at once, that I'm going to watch all 10 episodes all at once. I've never done that. I've come close. I've watched 3 or 4 episodes all in a row before, but I'm never going to binge an entire season like this. And maybe the people who are doing that, maybe they're enjoying this a little bit more than I am. But for me, whenever I watch an episode like this, and then I wait a day or two and watch another episode, I don't feel like I'm really getting a whole lot out of this series that way, because this really does feel like if you watch 10 minutes of a movie and then stopped and watched the next 10 minutes the next day, except it's a much longer movie than anything that you've ever seen before. And I think also my problem here is my expectations are not being met, and that's not an entirely fair criticism towards this show. When I went into this show, I didn't really have any expectations at all. All I knew about it was Nimue is going to be the main character. That's it. And then by the end of the first episode, Nimue's mom says, "Take this sword to Merlin." And I thought, okay, she's going to meet Merlin in 2 or 3 episodes, and then after that, they're going to go on some other adventure. And that's not what happened. Merlin has been on his own separate storyline this entire series. Meanwhile, everyone else in the series, they're all in their own storyline that's divided up further into different subplots as needed depending on the episode. And I said maybe in the previous episode that it almost feels like Merlin is in his own show because they very rarely are mentioning stuff that's going on in the other half of the show. And that still kind of feels like that. They did mention the Red Paladins at one point in the Merlin subplot in this episode, but that's a 1 second mention to what's going on in the rest of the series. And other than that, I don't feel like these subplots are really joining together like they should be. We are almost halfway through the season, and it still doesn't even feel like we're out of Act 1 of this story. That's a problem. I don't think that this had to be a 10-hour movie. You could have had Nimue and Merlin meet, and she gives him the sword, and then that could build up to a 3-episode arc. And then they have to go and do something else, and then that could build up to a 3-episode arc. And then you could bring everything to a close with the final 4 episodes of this season with another arc. Just because the season is 10 episodes long does not mean that this entire story had to be 10 episodes long. You could do smaller stories within this season, kind of like a television show does. It's weird to me that they're trying to make this be one gigantic story that takes up the entire season. I think that's why the pacing is so slow. We're 4 episodes in, and Nimue is no closer to finding Merlin than she was at the end of the first episode. She's run into a few obstacles, but she really hasn't done anything of note just yet. And maybe that's going to change. Maybe by the end of the season, my mind is going to be blown because of all this cool stuff that's happened. But right now, almost halfway through the season, not a whole lot has happened. And part of the problem is we keep introducing new subplots that are going to slow the entire thing down. When you have one character that you are following, you're going to have a whole lot of stuff that happens to that one character. But then when you have a second character who is not with that first character, and then you're splitting your time between this character and that character, then each of them have half of what one of them would have had if you're only following one person. This has been called, 3 lines, lots of waiting, or one line, no waiting, something like that. This episode has 5 subplots. That is insane. Now, this episode, if you count the credits and the theme song, it's almost an hour long. That's still very little that's happening with any of these characters. So let's divide everything up and let's talk about what happens with each one. So Morgan in The Nun, that's Arthur's sister, or maybe half-sister, I don't remember. But she let Nimue get away at the end of the previous episode. Well, then here, she takes a rock and she hits herself in the head and she goes back and tells them that Nimue got away, and then immediately she decides that she needs to run away because they're going to burn the abbess who's in charge of the nunnery. I guess it's an abbey. I don't know what the difference between those two things are, but they're going to burn her alive because she allowed for Nimue to be hiding out in their little church. And so Morgan wants to run away, and then you've got this other girl. I don't think I mentioned her in the previous episode, but she is the absolute worst. For no reason at all, she wants to be evil. That's literally her characterization in the previous episode. As soon as Nimue woke up, this little girl is like, "Who are you? I don't trust you." Just for no reason at all, she doesn't trust Nimue. And then when the Red Paladins gathered all of the nuns together, she tattles on Nimue and says she's not in here. She must be the one that you're looking for. In this episode, Iris, that's her name, she says she wants to be a Red Paladin. I don't know why. And then the Red Paladins ignore her, and so then she's praying in her room, and she says, well, show me a sign, and then she starts knocking stuff over, and then she finds this little cross that Morgan put in one of the, it's like a little container with ash in it. I'm not really sure what it's for. And then after that, Iris gets the idea to burn the place down. I don't know why. She wants to be evil. That's her characterization, and the actress is doing a heck of a job being evil, but I don't understand what makes this character tick. At least with the Red Paladins, they're wildly unlikable, but I know what makes people who are religious zealots, I know what makes them tick. That kind of thing exists in the real world, much as we don't want to admit it, but there are people out there who allow their blindness for a certain belief in an extreme in a certain belief. I don't want to say people of the Catholic faith are all bad, but people who allow a certain extremity in their beliefs to take hold of them, that kind of thing exists in the real world. But this lady, it's not that she necessarily believes in anything, because at the end of the episode she burns the place down, so I don't know if she's throwing away her beliefs. She just wants to be evil. So that's one subplot. Morgan, she escapes the place before that happens. That's another subplot. And admittedly, both of those don't take up a whole lot of room, but when you have 5 different subplots going on in an episode, none of them are going to take up a whole lot of room. Very little is going to happen in each of these subplots because they're all vying for screen time. Meanwhile, Arthur, he was captured by the Red Paladins in the previous episode. He manages to get away, and then he meets up with Nimue. Nimue she was out in the middle of the forest, and then she meets with these people in the Fey Underground Railroad. That's not what they call it, but that's basically what it is. Somehow, while Morgan was at this place pretending to be a nun, she somehow set up the Fey Underground Railroad. I don't know how, but anyway, these people who transport Fey to this secret hiding place for Fey, they meet up with Nimue. They give her a ride to wherever it is that she's going. She somehow meets up with Arthur. It is a really, really big coincidence that Arthur just happens to meet up with her, and I think this is the same place that Arthur was at where he was arrested, and he got arrested for killing a Red Paladin. Or actually, no, it wasn't a Red Paladin, it was one of Bor's friends. So why would he come back here? He comes back to the place where his uncle, he lied to his uncle, and his uncle says, get out of my sight, I don't want to see you again. I don't know why Arthur comes back here, except I guess the people realize they need to put these 2 characters back in the same subplot, and thank goodness they did, otherwise we would have had 6 subplots to keep up with. But anyway, these two meet up with each other. Nimue is mad at him, obviously, and he basically says, I don't know what to tell you, I lost the sword, sorry. But then they go out in the forest, and then coincidentally, Nimue just happens to find the sword. She finds it in the middle of a carriage, and then she sees there are two red paladins down in a little pond. They are bathing, and she's mad because the people who gave her a ride earlier, they have been killed. So she goes down and she kills these two red paladins, and then suddenly, like, 15 other red paladins come out of nowhere. I have no idea where these guys came from, because two of them were bathing, and then all these others who come out of nowhere, they're fully clothed, and I have no idea where they came from, but she starts killing people. Then Arthur saves her, and then they find the little girl who is a snake person. I am not making this up. She has scales, and that's fine, because later in the episode we see some other fae who don't look human, and like one of them has antlers, one of them has like bluish skin, so it's fine if you want to have these monstrous looking people who are, I guess, subsects of the fae. But then at one point she's speaking with her father, and I had subtitles on, and at the bottom it says, in snake, should I tell her my name, or something like that. And it really takes me out of the episode when people are speaking in snake language. But anyway, they find her, they take her to Nemos, which I guess is the final destination for the Fae Underground Railroad. And so then Nimue and Arthur, they are now home, according to Nimue. And meanwhile, Merlin, he is underground, I guess in hell, maybe? I don't know. He's talking to this guy named Rugen. I don't know what he is. He is not entirely human. He almost looks human. He has a ruby for an eye, and his skin looks kind of not human. Some of his subjects in this five-person kingdom, they don't look human, but then some of them look more human than others. So I don't know where this place is, if this is like Demon Central for Celtic beliefs. I'm not really sure, but this guy is Rugen, and Merlin mentioned a couple of episodes ago that he needed Fae Fire so that he can destroy the sword. And basically, Merlin gets some Fae Fire, he tricks these guys, and then he gets away. And that's all that happens. Again, probably in the next episode, he's going to spend an entire episode getting one more item that he's going to need in order to destroy the sword. I guess I'm interested to see what is going to happen when Nimue actually meets Merlin. Are they going to be allies, or him trying to destroy the sword, is that going to put these two at odds with each other? I'm interested in that, but at this point, I'm starting to lose interest. In fact, I was starting to lose interest a couple of episodes ago when this series was just not moving at all. I really want to see some stuff actually start happening. And if you're thinking, well, that's all the subplots that he had to talk about, no, there's actually one more that I forgot about until just now. Remember Pym? Pym was Nimue's friend in the village in the first episode, and then when Nimue went back to the first episode, and her village was being attacked, and then she didn't see where Pym was, and then her mother dies and tells her, take this sword away. I just assumed that Pym was killed. I assumed that everyone in that village died off, and I didn't really need to see Pym again. Nothing against this actress, but it's kind of like if you're going and watching Star Wars A New Hope, and then Luke is off talking to Obi-Wan, and then he realizes that the stormtroopers are going to go and attack his home. So he runs back home, and then he sees the dead bodies of his aunt and uncle, and then he goes back to Obi-Wan and says, okay, I'm ready to go on this adventure with you. Now imagine if that happened, and then 10 minutes after Luke leaves Tatooine, then we see Owen and Beru, and they're on the run, and it turns out that these stormtroopers, they put these dead bodies at Luke's house to make him think that his aunt and uncle were dead, and then they're going to take Owen and Beru somewhere else, and then they escape. And then we have to spend screen time with Owen and Beru, who we don't care about. All we care about them for is they're connected to Luke, and then they die, and we're supposed to feel sad. That is the extent of involvement that I wanted to see Pym have with this series. Again, nothing against the actress. I think she did a good job fulfilling the best friend archetype for the hero, and then the hero loses the best friend, and I've lost everything that was dear to me. Now I have to fulfill this mission and bring the sword off to Merlin, find Merlin. But I get the feeling that these people realize, hey, we need about 10 extra minutes in this episode. What should we do? Let's reveal that Pym is still alive. So Pym is hiding at a dock somewhere. This guy whose mom is really mean to him, he finds her, and then he tells the mom that Pym is going to marry him, and she's immediately like, I don't know, no. But I guess they go along with it because otherwise the mom is going to turn Pym over to the Red Paladins, and then Pym sees this raider, and she's like instantly head over heels in love with him, and that's all we get with Pym. I don't know why this series needed to bring her back. Again, the actress did a fine job in the first episode, but we didn't need her anymore. And I very clearly can see that she is not going to have anything to offer the rest of the series about Nimue's quest quest to bring the sword to Merlin, about any of this stuff. I will be very surprised if she somehow finds her way back into these other subplots. Right now, it feels like they are just throwing stuff at the screen to stall until they get to that 10 episode mark where they can wrap everything up. And they didn't have to do it this way. You could have done a whole bunch of mini arcs along the way. In that case, I would have been fine with them keeping Pym alive. She and Nimue could have stuck together, and then they could go on this adventure together, and then you can have all these little things happen along the way. But right now, it really feels like they needed a little bit of space to kill some time so that they can get that much closer to the end of this season. And I really don't like the way that they're doing this. Now, if this had been an actual movie, I probably would have enjoyed this overall. I like a lot of the decisions that they are making with these characters and with this world. I like the look of this world. I like the presentation of some of these characters because by and large, whenever you're getting a King Arthur story, everyone is going to have their own interpretation of it. And so it's always a gamble on if it's going to be an interpretation that you actually like, or if it's going to be something that, I don't really care for the way that they presented this world and that particular character. But so far, I like the presentation of these characters. I like some of the how they're being played differently than how they're normally played. But I don't like how slow this is moving. If this was a movie, I would have been fine with it. But if this was a movie, by the end of episode 4, we would have only been about 20 minutes in, maybe. Anyway, that's about it now. I'm probably going to keep going because at this point, I'm almost halfway done. It's only 10 episodes, and like I say, by the end of this season, I might like it more, and then I might go back and watch it again, and I might appreciate it more knowing the direction that they're going. But right now, going in blind, I'm really not liking it. I'm really not liking how slow everything is moving. But that's it for the episode The Red Lake. I hope you guys like this episode review, and be sure to tune in whenever. I'm just going to do these episodes whenever I do them. So anyway, that's it. I will see you guys in the future. Have a good one.